Menendez brothers Reddit discussions.
Imagine living your life knowing that your own mother hates you. So heartbreaking.
He reverts back to a very childlike expression emo when he talks about being 7 when his mother was saying she wished he was never born. Kitty's verbal/physical and sexual abuse of Lyle is not talked about that much. It needs to be recognized more.
The voice breaking at 7 always makes me sob.
It is hard for him because he is verbalizing it for the first time. Do you know that feeling, when you're hurt and carry that pain with you and never have the chance to process it? And when you say it out loud, it finally gets you?
Yes, he was saying it just as if narrating something, then he started feeling it when he said, "I wish you were never born." The heartbreak hit him and then the emotions started welling.
Then wait till your dad gets home, I'll tell him the things that you didn't do today, and I wish you were never born, and why can't you be like your brother, and what's the matter with you, and then I would try to say something, she would say, "Shut up, I don't want to hear it, you're stupid, I hate you."
How old were you when you heard things like, "I wish you were never born"?
So, 7.
Rebecca really meant it when she said that no one broke Lyle's heart more than Kitty. Ignoring his calls knowing he could hear it, the needle incident, smearing blood on his face and forcing him to eat like that, chasing him with a knife, blaming him for needing to take pills, and that was apparently a nice conversation, leaving him at the airport alone with Eric, forcing him to stay in his room and use a box as the bathroom. Jose could control many people, but he couldn't even control Kitty. That's how out of control she really was. The list is too long. How can a person be this cruel to her own son?
I'm not sure why, but the ignoring of his calls at football camp was really upsetting. That is so cruel. That's not just hurting him at home, somewhere that he is still familiar with and with other members of his family, where he could find comfort such as with Eric or his grandparents/aunts or tennis coaches. But she treated him so horribly, and he was away from home, alone and embarrassed due to the further reminder that his mother didn't care when watching all the other children talking about their chats with their parents. That really tugged at my heartstrings.
Same. Going back listening to all the other kids talk about their normal loving parents and you probably having to lie when asked about yours. Kitty's verbal, physical, and sexual abuse towards Lyle is often something that, in my opinion, is quite overlooked when it comes to this case. It's always Jose was the abusive one and Kitty just let it happen. A lot of times when I see people covering this case either on podcasts or on social media, they fail to really mention just how horrible Kitty Menendez was. Even for me, when I first heard about this case way before I watched the actual trial, I really had no idea that Kitty was so abusive. I knew about Jose, but from doing my research, Kitty's abuse really was never mentioned. It was more just, oh, she let it happen, she should have stood up for her sons, which yes is true, but there was no talk of her being violent, aggressive, exploding in rage, or being sexually abusive towards Lyle. I really didn't find out until I actually watched Lyle's testimony where he goes into deep detail about his mother's abuse.
To me personally, it is obvious that Kitty's abuse toward Lyle left a scar in his heart bigger than anything he experienced at the hands of Jose. I had very troubled relationships with my mother. She was like Kitty, very unstable, verbally and physically abusive, very unpredictable, very cruel, would intentionally do things to hurt you. Listening to Lyle's testimony brought tears to my eyes. I felt his pain on a very, very personal level. Mother's betrayal is the worst kind of betrayal one can experience.
I agree wholeheartedly. I started tearing up when Jill asked him, "Did you think she was going to love you if you did these things?" And Lyle's response was, "I took it to be love, and that's what I wanted." All he ever wanted was for his mother to love him. Lyle even testified that he told his mom that if she divorced Jose, that he and Eric would support her. He was willing to leave the close relationship he had with his dad to be with his mom. Not to mention the letter that he read in court that he had written to her when he was in Princeton. He greatly wanted that unconditional love from his mother just like any kid deserves. Also, I'm so sorry you had to go through those things with your own mother. A mother is supposed to love, protect, and care for her children.
Abandoning him at the airport with a baby is so crazy to me. Can you imagine the stress he must have felt? He was in charge of Eric and the luggage at 5 at an airport. Insane.
And plus, he had to worry about his father's reaction in case if he left the luggage. And people wonder why he never trusted a soul, because he learned to rely on himself since he was 4 to 5 years old.
Lyle's testimony just breaks my heart. You can really see the hurt little boy sitting there just wanting to be loved by his mother. I sometimes feel that he's actually the more vulnerable of the two, even now.
He is definitely the more vulnerable one. People don't understand what the inability to express your pain can do to you. He was locked up in this mental jail his whole life. Eric was more openly emotional, which is a more healthy way of processing your pain. But repressing your emotions is far more damaging to you than people may realize.
The washing the genitals part, I hope it does not mean she would give him a blow job or something. I hope it just means she de-soap him and then run the shower, which he could do himself at that age, but nothing too alarming. But the way he seems upset about the shower makes me worried if he means anything else.
I've said many times that I have a gut feeling that there's much that Lyle has never said and will never say. Same with Eric, but to a lesser degree. I think Eric told of the vast majority of what happened, but I feel like Lyle was quite vague and almost evasive at times. It's like he gave the minimum regarding the sexual abuse, feeling more comfortable to talk about the verbal and physical instead, although of course that was clearly still tremendously painful for him.
I think for Lyle, what his mother did was way worse than Jose. He tried to not cry, but he could not even speak. Poor thing. I feel so much for him. My dad said I was the devil's child. I never forget that. I know how much words just kill your spirit.
What I find quite impressive is that no girlfriend complained about Lyle being sexually aggressive. He was able to be normal in his consensual sexual relationships despite being abused.
Yeah, true. He and Eric did act out on Diana's children, but it appears that he just isn't capable of that as an adult. Him appearing normal doesn't mean that he didn't struggle internally, however. I find it rather satisfying that Jose never did manage to create the mini Jose monsters that he tried to create. It makes me wonder if some people are just good at their core, and no amount of manipulation can turn them into a true monster.